Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGaming.com video, we're going to be taking a look at the Steam Summer Sale. Are we excited? Are we? Well, you should be. We're going to be kicking things off with Chivalry Medieval Warfare, which is currently available for 90% off. That's actually a pretty good damn price in my personal opinion anyway. Now, what is it? I'll go through that first. Well, it's a FPS, but rather than using, say, oh, I don't know, an M4A1, you're going to be utilizing weapons, for example, shields, maces, longbows. It's a medieval title, and I guess a very crappy way to describe it, but kind of a very basic way would be Skyrim combat in terms of sword and shield, but more of a focus on melee. It's also online. It scores really well. It's not a game that I'm personally interested in. It does, as I said, have a focus online, but it's not something that I'm personally enthralled by. It does score really well, so it's my own personal opinion that it's not something that I'm massively interested in. It's just kind of like, I don't know, just not for me. But it does score very well. I believe the community is going to be pretty good. Obviously, after a sale, it usually spurs on a little bit anyway. You'll obviously get the newbies who are kind of like, help me, where's my medicine, and the veterans will slaughter them, but for those who persevere, obviously, you can reap the rewards. I have no real qualms of recommending this title. It is pretty damn good. It's just not a game that I'm really interested in. Next game. This actually has been a little bit like Marmite, The Evil Within. So it's available for 75% off, which is pretty good. It's $14.99, that's US dollars, or $8.74 if you're paying in Great British Pounds. So this title is by Shinji Mikami. He is, of course, the creator of Resident Evil, but now he's got his own team, Tango Gameworks, and it's very much I guess one of the ways you could describe it is kind of like Resident Evil 5 in some ways. It's a combination of Resident Evil 4 and 5 in terms of the basic gameplay mechanics. The gunplay and so on definitely feels a little bit like that. It does have a demo available. Now, personally speaking, I actually really like this. Unfortunately, just as a slight aside, the DLC is not on sale. Now, I like the game a lot. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I really liked it. Others don't, and it does have some problems, particularly on launch. There are some issues with, for example, cheesy one-hit deaths, and they can really frustrate. There's a section near the beginning of the game that could kind of put you off. And enemy AI can be a bit iffy, but I really do like the story, I like the way it's told, and I like the upgrade system and so on. I'd highly recommend you check out the demo. We've covered it on the channel as well. I don't personally have any qualms recommending it. I really like it, but it is a game where some people definitely don't like it. Issues, just for your FYI, issues like the ever-present widescreen mode and the FPS lock have been resolved for the PC. So what you can go ahead and do is disable those, which is good. You can also do things such as mess around with the film grain and so forth. But anyway, it's a good thing. Borderlands, the franchise is on sale. So I won't read all of them out because, quite frankly, I'll be here until Christmas. But there's 67 to 80% off on all of the various games. So you can get, for example, the Borderlands, the pre-sequel for 67% off, which brings it to like £10. I'm just rounding it up. Borderlands 2, $4.99, and so on and so forth. Now, I have to confess, and I'm probably going to get, people raging at me, I've never really been that much into Borderlands. I'm not saying it's a terrible game, it's just I'm not super into the humour. However, I have played a little bit of Borderlands 2 and I kind of liked it. So, there is that. I'm not particularly sure which one to go for if you are kind of like new to the game. I imagine most people have played at least one of them. But if you've not, you might as well go with Borderlands 2, I guess, because it's cheaper. So I guess it's kind of a good way to test things out. You could possibly go for the Game of the Year edition since it's $4.99. Might as well. You could also go with Borderlands, the Game of the Year edition, which is also $4.99. But personally, I'd recommend just going for standard Borderlands 2, or you could go for Borderlands Game of the Year and Borderlands 2, I guess. But anyway, not really that much to say about this one because so many people know about it. The best way to describe it is, I guess, kind of a little bit like Fallout. You're in a post-apocalyptic future almost. It has first-person shooting elements with a lot of RPG elements. So, for example, you will level up as you're continuing to go forward. You've, of course, got a massive variety of weapons. And it is a pretty cool game. As I said, we have covered it on the channel previously. I don't think it's a bad game. It's just not quite my thing. But it is fun. I'd recommend you check it out if it's something you're interested in. But anyway, moving on, Castle Crashers. So this is a title that I've not actually played it, but it is a hack and slash 2D action adventure. It's available for a ridiculously 99 pennies, which is like just nothing. 90% off. There is a demo if you so desire. Not played this one personally, however, Amata on the channel has assured me that, well, in her opinion, it's amazing, and on Steam it's pretty good. It's so cheap, it's like, at least try the demo, or just buy the bloody thing. It's like 99p, or whatever it is in your currency. It's nothing. Anyway, moving on, we're going to be discussing Cities Skylines. This one is pretty obvious. It's obviously city building. Now, this title is fairly new, so it's not a massive discount. It's going to cost you $15.40, at least if you're talking about pound prices, or you can pay $20, obviously if you're paying US prices. It's actually a pretty good deal, considering this game scores extremely well. Fortunately, it doesn't have issues which plague, say, SimCity. So, you've got a massive amount of content here for single player. You can do pretty much anything. If you ever decided, hey, I want to build my own town, this game's for you. It's basically an update, massive improvement over the original Cities games, and I think they're so well known. If you've been a PC gamer for some time, there's not really any major problems or bugs as far as I'm aware. I'd recommend it. If you're slightly tempted by these type of games, now's your opportunity. It's a really good price, considering the amount of time it's been out. Watch Dogs, 60% off, which is going to make it $15.99. Oh dear. I guess I might stop. I'll tell you the pound price. It's $9.59. Oi. This is a very, very tricky game for me to critique. And I don't mean because I find it, hard to say things about. I think it's hard to say things succinctly without people immediately bringing up memories of the E3 demo. Now, as a game, I don't think it particularly challenged any genre. I don't think it was like new. I don't think it was revolutionary, and I do feel that the hacking side of things definitely wasn't pushed as much as Ubisoft led us to believe. The graphics downgrades as well pissed a lot of people off. You can do things to improve the graphics, which I won't cover in this video because we've covered it before, but mostly mods and so on. Now, as a game, for the price, it's not bad. I would suggest it, but only if you can go in, and I know this is a bit difficult to do, but you have to go in without preconceived notions as much as possible, and just think, hey, this is going to be like a good third-person action game with some hacking elements. It will not make you, as was advertised to begin with, a god. It will not allow you to, this is a completely ridiculous example, but you're not going to be able to hack into every single, traffic map, traffic light in the city and randomly cause chaos. You will be able to do it as you're driving past, and so there are definitely limitations which are kind of a pain in the ass, and sometimes it's almost a hacking game of press X to hack, which I can kind of see where it where, for brevity's sake, especially as you're driving down the street, you know, you can't make it too complicated, but that was definitely... People basically expected the hacking to be a lot more involved. They really didn't expect the gunplay maybe to be so basic, and they certainly didn't expect the massive graphics downgrades. But as an actual experience in terms of storyline, it's not awful. I don't mind it at all. It's maybe the problem is Aiden himself is a little flat, so you have to kind of take that into account. I don't feel they fleshed the characters out maybe as much as they could have, but for the price, it's not bad. It's not a glowing recommendation, I confess, but it's not bad. Anyway, Age of Mythology. Age of Mythology is back, they recommend. Anyway, so what is Age of Mythology? Well, it is an RTS where, of course, it's very... It basically puts you in control of not only a civilization, it's an RTS experience, but with gods to pick from. So there are multiple different gods, and obviously there are multiple different ages to build from. So, for example, you've got Greek, Egyptian, Norse, and so on and so forth. You've got different... Each civilization is different by their design, and there are some also differences between the major gods as well as the minor gods. This is actually a pretty good game, to be totally honest. It's a bit involved, and I say that in a nice way. I don't mean it in a harsh way. I just mean that if you're into a very simplistic RTS or a very simplistic kind of baby's first RTS, you might be a little overwhelmed with this. But if you're looking to kind of jump into the next step up or really throw a lot of hours in and kind of learn the system, it's definitely for you. It's a pretty good price as well, $5.74 if you're paying in Great British Pounds, or if you're paying in dollars, it's going to cost you $7.49. So neither of us get screwed over. $24.99. That's for Shadow of Mordor, ladies and gentlemen. That's a pretty good price, actually. So it's $15.99. So what is it? Well, it's obviously set in the Lord of the Rings / Hobbit / universe. Now, Middle-earth, of course, has a ridiculous amount of potential in terms of storyline. I mean, God, it's almost like Star Wars in that respect. You can set it in various parts of the world and, you know, different times and so forth. And this is actually pretty good. The action's pretty great. The best way of describing, I guess, would be a combination of Assassin's Creed meets Batman. I don't mean that in a negative way, it's just kind of how it works. There is a nemesis system in place where, let's say you kill Orc A, who is, say, a commander, Orc B will take his place, and therefore the plans of the game may change a little bit, and you can utilize that to also gather intel from the enemies. It does have some problems, to be totally honest. It's not flawless. The gameplay is a little stagnant. Towards, let's say, the 5 or 6 hour mark, it can feel a little bit like chop Orc A 1, 2, 3, chop next Orc 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So there is that. I guess if you're really into the Batman series or you're really into Lord of the Rings, go for it, not a qualm. If, however, that type of fighting kind of gets you a little bit like, getting a little bored now, then maybe not so much for you. Anyway, jumping on to the next game. It is, of course, 7 Days to Die. What is it? Well, it's an early access game. I say that not in a slight, I'm just pointing out that the game can change. Now, it is survival / horror. So, the idea here is, of course, first of all, the game is still in early access, so things can change. It does score extremely well in early access, so it doesn't have any major bugs, at least as far as I'm aware. So, the best way of describing this would be, let's see, harsh. If you're expecting to go into this game and have kind of like an easy run-up, you maybe have bad expectations. This game, you can die really fast, so you have to build shelter, you have to build, you know, make sure you're collecting food and scavenge and so on. I guess the best way to describe it would almost be like maybe The Walking Dead, I guess, kind of, because there are zombies. You can break your leg, you can break your limbs, you can obviously starve to death and so on. You have to worry about shelter. If that's the type of game which appeals to you, then definitely go forth and pick it up. The developers are pretty active. They are regularly updating it, which is obviously a good thing. For example, there's a patch on the 28th, then there was a patch on of May, there's a patch on the 12th of June, and all of that is a good demonstration that the developers are, actively working on it. So for the price as well, $9.99, that's US dollars, that's pretty good. 85% off for Prison Architect. This is another game that's been in early access for some time, but another game that's regularly updated and so forth. The best way to describe this is you are a warden of a prison, but you're also, well, building it. So obviously, I don't really think I need to describe how that works. You have to basically manage a prison. This game isn't really one that would appeal to me, but if you're interested in something along the lines of, let's say, Theme Hospital, which I kind of like back in the day, but I've gotten out of those type of games somewhat, to be totally honest, then maybe this one's for you. Definitely give it a shot for the price. As I said, it scores really well also. Counter-Strike Global Offensive. I don't really think I need to describe the basic gameplay, but I will anyway. It's obviously mostly focused on the multiplayer online first-person shooter. Now, obviously, you're playing as either counter-terrorists or terrorists, and you've got the opposing goal. So terrorists need to plant a bomb, counter-terrorists need to either stop them or, well, defuse the bomb. Terrorists on other maps might have to rescue the defend the hostages and make sure that they don't get rescued, and the reverse is true as the counter-terrorists and so on. Now you understand that, if you didn't already. What about the gameplay itself? Well, there is a couple of points I'd like to make. I think it's a really good price, 50% off. It has been a little cheaper, but still it's not a bad price, $7.49. The only concern I have for this game is there's a massive, massive, massive gulf between someone who's good and someone who's just started. And it can get incredibly frustrating if you are new to the game, because you die real fast. And by real fast, I mean there's no way to heal, and there's no pickups or anything like that. You can pick up ammo or different weapons, that type of thing, but you can't pick up medipacks. And so if you die, you have to wait for the round to end. Now, obviously there are some different game modes and so on before people become pedantic, but I'm just saying, on average traditional Counter-Strike, that's not a bad thing. And I was massively into the game back in the day. I used to play with clans and so on, but I kind of stopped, and then I tried to go back to it after a year, maybe 2 years off, and I was awful. Or not, obviously some people had not taken any time off, and they basically just ravaged me online. This is back when I used to play first-person shooters really consistent. This is back in CS 1.6 / Counter-Strike Zero's heyday. And it demonstrated to me that, hey, even this is one of those games where just a microsecond can make the difference between being sniped and so on. And I know I sound like I'm trying to put you off. I'm not. I'm just trying to point out that, people can get really frustrated at this game. So I'm just pointing it out. Anyway, A Wolf Among Us, a Telltale series. This is 6/24. If you've ever played The Walking Dead by Telltale, this is a little similar. The basic idea here is it's gritty, violent, and is based on the fables of a DC Comics. It's basically a wolf. And it's a supernatural kind of tale. You do make your own story. There are multiple different paths, branching paths. Obviously, not all decisions can be changed. I don't really want to give too much away for this one because it's very story driven. We have covered some parts on the channel if you do want to see some of the gameplay. I don't really have any qualms of recommending this game. It's actually pretty excellent. Sunless Sea is the next game. It scores extremely well. It's actually a game that I've not played, but it's a roguelite, and I guess you could kind of equate it to something along the lines of FTL. This is a very harsh game. I'm just pointing this out because this is a game where you can starve to death on the sea. You can maybe do cannibalism if you get too hungry. You can betray your crew. It's kind of awesome sounding. I've just not really played it, but it does look kind of cool. I'd recommend checking it out. As I said, I've not personally tried it, but it looks pretty excellent. Football Manager. I say it in such a tone because 2 reasons. One, I'm not too fond of soccer / football / whatever you want to call it. 2, I have friends who are addicted to this title. Oh, all these titles. I know some who will literally spend, like, any time they've got free, they will be up until like 4 or 5 in the morning playing this bloody game. I don't know enough about the intricacies in terms of what they've improved, or indeed about football itself, to actually make a description of what's improved over this previous version. But the basic iteration is that, of course, you are managing your own /football / soccer club, and it's ridiculously addictive. I would recommend doing a little bit of checking out. Just make sure, like, if, for example, you own 2014, it does have mostly positives. A friend of mine has said it maybe wasn't quite the update they'd hoped for from 2014, but I've not played it enough to know. Anyway, Spintires is next. What is Spintires? Well, in a nutshell, it's a driving simulator for off-road, but you can do things such as multiple different Russian vehicles. You obviously take them off-road, you'll navigate over various rugged terrain, and you'll need to complete various objectives, and primarily you want to be collecting lumber. Now, it might sound a little bit boring, but there are quite a few different... The graphics are pretty impressive. There is a lot of different trucks, great physics, there is multiplayer and so on, and it can be kind of cool. It's not a game that I'm really interested in, I will be honest. But for those who are interested in this type of thing, then I guess you could go ahead and check it out. I have heard that certain things are a little iffy. For example, the camera controls and so on do maybe deserve a little bit of extra improvement. I'm going to very quickly blast through the flash sales, those that I know for certain. Tomb Raider franchise, not really much to say. The latest Tomb Raider is fantastic. Trine Elements, Artifacts of Power, 25% off, Trine free. We have covered it a little bit, early access already on the channel for the price off. Yeah, I'd go ahead. I'd definitely buy it. Deadlight. 2D, very, 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 very depressing dark game. I'd recommend checking it out. I have covered it on the channel previously, so go ahead and look at the video if you need to. And that's about all of the ones that I know actually at the moment that are on sale. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.